Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today we're taking a look at flats and forests. Nice bright and open game that I played myself, and I'm really excited to show it off to you guys. I had a pretty good match, and I'm always excited to show those off because it means that I get to show what I did right, which sometimes is just an accident. So even, in the moment I don't realize what went right, what went wrong. We had some fans in the chat, or in the game rather, so that'll be fun to show off as well. I wrote I know because of the T1 solar panel. I noticed that Quiet Listener was over here looking at it. Apparently I've become notorious, so man can't even go for a solar panel without being judged. Fairly, I would say. I was having a bunch of technical difficulties right here. I kept my shift key wasn't working, so I kept accidentally messing up the queue. Anyway, this build order actually turned out pretty well. It was Mex, Solar, Bot Lab, and then into a couple of wind turbines. After that, going for those ticks, of course. Got to get those out and across the map. I don't know if I won this, though, because of how slowly I built that Bot Lab. But why don't we meet our team leaders? Because I'm not the team leader here, as much as I am looking at myself here. Staring into a mirror. No, our team leader here for the Western team, the red team, is going to be Odzy. Odzy showing us a very similar build, actually, going for just six wind turbines rather than the solar panel. So very similar to the same start that I went for, although they went for all 4 mexes before I did. So that's probably better, if it does mean that at the very least their bot lab is going to come out a little bit slower. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side for our blue team, we have Red Eagle, player 1. Who actually went for a vehicle lab first. That's quite interesting. Those are usually what we see on this map is a bot start and then a vehicle transition, but it looks like him as well as Humblegar have both gone for a bot lab or a vehicle lab in the bottom. Now the vehicle labs are very, very good on this map. They're definitely probably the best option to go for, at least in the middle, the mid game area. Not T2, but like early T1 before going into T2. I'm actually going to show you a vehicleless flats and forest here, which is not a very common one. The queue I'm going for is 5 pawns and then a construction bot, so that every 5 pawns that pumps out of this lab, I'm going to go for another construction bot, hopefully eventually building up the build power here. And these are super important. This absolutely was the mechanic that saved me here. Sending these res bots out to eat up energy actually prevented an E-stall for the majority of this match. I think, well into the late game, it took forever for these to eat up all these trees. Now, I think if you're looking for ways to improve on this build, you can build some extra build power at the start, funded by the extra energy you get here, but also build a couple of these energy converters so that you're not just overflowing energy. At this point, the entire team is full on energy, so we're actually just wasting it. So at that point, I think I could have done a little bit better building these energy converters a little sooner, making sure that whatever energy was coming back was being spent appropriately. Getting all these metal extractors is also very, very important. Really, really important that you always are keeping track of your metal extractors. I've set up a little wall of pawns here just to make sure that all the enemies are dissuaded from pushing in this direction. It's generally a good idea on this map just to get a wall of little base units, pawns, grunts, something like that in order to more importantly, to secure the vision, right? Because you want to make sure that you have that vision under lock so that you're not actually flanked by a bunch of units here. You can see we're leaking things through at the moment because we don't have any sort of wall set up. But once the front lines are defined, it's very, very hard to find a way to run those units through, which can be really beneficial to you. Now, ironically, we had a player. Was it this game or was it? Might have been a different game, actually, but there were some players that were talking about ecoing on this map. This is definitely a lanes map, so you can't really afford to eco without... I mean, at the very least, you'd have to coordinate with your teammates really, really hard, just to make sure that everyone's well aware of exactly what you're going for here. You can see, if I had built a little more build power, this would have been out a little bit quicker, and I would have been able to spend my metal a little faster, using the commander to capture the big areas, the heavy metal extractor points. On maps like this, where you have a huge open area that you want to control, it's most important to focus on securing the densest possible areas, right? So worrying about these 3s before worrying about the 1s is generally a better idea. But you do want to make sure you get those 1s eventually. That's what extra bots are meant for. This setting right here, I'm going to pause this and show you this setting because it's really that important. If we go to settings, we go to game, behavior, and then you look at this toggle right here. Huge shout out to the commenter who told me about this. Factory guard builders. You want to toggle this on as soon as you can. What that does is it makes it so that every builder that comes out of the lab gets a new order to just help the building that it came out of. Super, super useful, because otherwise your constructors are going to be routed to the front lines and probably killed, but at, you know, the best case scenario, they're just going to be way out of position, which isn't good. And so it's really important that you're always on top of making sure that you have a steady flow of builders coming out, but not not headed right towards the front line. So yeah, go turn that setting on. Absolutely killer. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the person who told me about that, but you've saved me a ton of woes, ton of troubles here. Finally starting up some build power. Desperately needed here. You can see we're slowly building up metal. We're not actually able to spend it quick enough, which is sort of a good problem. Anyways, front lines are starting to get drawn here. I noticed that Majo has actually gone for a air start. Huh. That's risky. Very lucky that Superlux didn't push into them. I think probably we just never got vision over here. Yeah, okay, so we never... I think I snuck a tick through over here, so that's how I know about this base. But yeah, we must just never have gotten anything through to go scout out this lower area. Very, very fortunate for Majo here, because otherwise that would have been really bad. Tons of T1 solar, too. We do have the advanced solars, though, which is quite nice. I'd love to see these T1s melted down and turned into advanced solar panels. No reason not to, right? It's just going to be a more efficient use of the metal, and you can always pick it up later if you need to. For the time being, we're worried about expanding on the front lines, though. So that's no worries whatsoever. Huge pawn army. The pawn menace. I tend to find the pawns much easier to control than the grunts. I'm not sure why, but they just seem to like them a little bit. They seem to listen to my orders a little bit better. I was trying to sneak some pawns through this little gap here, but I was shut down by enemy units, so decided to just pull these back. Save face. But yeah, taking over big areas of the map, really, really important. Really nicely done by Superlux here as well for pushing past the mountain. It's really easy to get stuck fortifying this mountain, but this is actually a way better of a spot to be right out in front of the mountain, because it does mean that well, one, you're going to get these 3 metal extractors here, you're also going to get the geothermal plant, and it's also going to keep you in line with basically the entire rest of your team, which you can see is sort of in this line right here, which is very, very nicely done. I really, really like to see that. Oh, a lot of missing metal extractors, though. I definitely should have been a whole lot quicker on this. Oh, this was something new I was trying to start up a T2 lab with just a single constructor working on it. So we're not pumping a whole lot of resources into it, just some metal and some energy, but not everything. Just to see if it would come together nicely, and I think it absolutely did. It made this lab come up at, well, let's see when we get it here. Looks like it'll be around 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, which is super quick for a T2 lab on a lane map like this. So that's something that I'm gonna have to look into, but it seems like it worked really well. Eventually turning the construction turret around to even just pump whatever I can into here. Again, the only reason I can go up to this lab, 15,000 metal for that lab, is because these guys are eating up all these trees over here, providing 57 energy per second whenever they're eating a tree. Basically the only reason this was even possible to fund in the first place. But yeah, very, very nice to experiment with that and find out that it works really well. I'm actually even building some more Lazaruses because I want to eat even more of those trees per second here. Funding those T2s is so hard to do, and you don't really think about the energy cost. I usually say that you want about 500 energy when you're going for that T2, but it seems like as long as you've got you know, anywhere between 300 to 500 and you don't put too much build power into it, you're actually going to be in a really nice spot. Changing up for the ticks, which are much less expensive than anything else, which is going to help basically make sure that all of the economy is going into the T2 stuff now rather than anywhere towards the T1. Energy banks as well to store up more energy from those trees. Probably should have done that to begin with. And I probably should eat these T1 solar panels by now as well. We're getting a little bit low on metal. Not completely out yet, but we are getting there. So yeah, I probably should be eating those up eventually. But I haven't had a contest on the front line, so for now I'm just taking the free T2. You know, I'll just take it wherever I can get it. Here's another tip that I would advise. Always start building these windmills over here. You can see I just queued a butler to build these windmills. It takes them about 10 seconds to build each windmill, which is really, really nice. Obviously they can throw up a whole bunch of them real quick, and it's just an easy way to get your economy up to really, really high spec. You can jump straight into advanced fusion reactors. You can just bypass the regular fusion reactor step, like on this map, but especially maps with even higher wind power. Front lines are drawn, and this is typically what we see, right? We have the vehicles out in front harassing everything down, and then we have the bot lab in the back producing vehicles, or producing bots rather, although I guess this is a little bit the other way around. Did we have a player leave? Oh, looks like a player has left down here. Z-Pod, very nicely done, has actually taken over this player. I didn't even notice that. Guess I wasn't paying very close attention in game here. Yeah, very nicely done by Z-Pod to take over and sort of hold a 2v1 at this point now. We do have the economy of 2 players, but it's kind of difficult to balance that once you get your hands on the actual economies there. It does mean that we're going to have access to the bot lab and the vehicle lab, so this is actually an unintentional meta. But I do notice that my team, as well as me, I mean, I have a lot of missing metal extractors here, but I do notice that there's missing metal extractors all over the place. The blue team has done a more phenomenal job of making sure that those metal extractors are taken. Magnum Tutor pushing really far forward here. It's a lot of thugs, and thugs trade out really nicely against those grunts. See the grunts kind of fall apart. Very nicely done. That was a great engagement. Really, really bad for those thugs. Or for those grunts, rather. Sorry. The light blue grunts here by Nielero have Nielero. Is that... No, wait, that's French, not it. I thought it was Italian. It's not Italian, is it? I don't think it's Italian. Well, anyway. The blue grunts here, pushing forward. But yeah, they get mowed down pretty quickly there, which is really, really nicely done. So this is something that I was super happy about. This doesn't work all the time, but if you can get a couple of ticks together, say, I don't know, 34 ticks together, and you just happen to know where a commander is, and you know that the army of that commander was just devastated, the case in point right here, you can move the ticks in, and they're usually too fast for anything to deal with, so... Oh, well done by Magnum Tutor also, repositioning the army to handle this. Spreading into a nice little concave there, and actually doing a phenomenal job of managing that. Really nicely done. Meanwhile, the ticks have arrived. They find the commander who just finished up an agitator, but they jump on top of the commander. See, the micro on these was definitely not perfecto. It was a little rough, but eventually we do manage to take down the commander. Also knocking out the agitator, well, most of the agitator anyways. But those bots are going to easily clean that up. And that was an excellent, excellent pick. It does mean that this player is going to be set back a little bit because that front line is now no longer secure. TNB 87113 is going to have to flex their resources, and everyone is going to be pulled away. Things are going to get really complicated really fast. Meanwhile, fusion reactor is started up. Always a good idea to start up a fusion reactor as soon as you're done upgrading the first metal extractors around your base. Once you're done with the fusion reactor, you should start up an anti-nuke, which is not what I did. I just got lucky, but yeah, you definitely want to go for that anti-nuke as soon as you possibly can. It can be dangerous not to. Lethal even. T2 is out on the bottom as well. Red Eagle P1 has got that T2 Cortex vehicle lab out and about here. Man, I've been trying to play those Cortex T2 vehicles, and let me tell you, I just cannot figure out how to do it. I've tried on multiple occasions, multiple games, and I just cannot get it right. Not sure what I'm doing wrong, but it seems like I got some work to do learning those. Up north here, huge engagement. A couple of commanders have actually gone down. Our timer has gone down, as well as a whole bunch of units up here that do have the red and green and emblems here. Interesting. Looks like Rancy's commander has also gone down as well. Rancy is up to T2 units. That is good. We are up to T2 as well for our timer. Everyone is stepping properly into that mid-game. You can see I went straight into the sprinters. Sprinters are super, super powerful. They're versatile. They're very useful in a lot of different situations. Oh, accidentally de-gunning facility there, as well as blowing up our own tanks. You can see how dangerous those Januses can be to even your own friendly units when you just move something harmless like a tick in there. What is this? 15 sprinters versus 17 tanks, 9 Janus, and 2 bulls. Not a favorable matchup, I would say. Now, luckily, the sprinter has a secret superpower, and it's friendly fire. Because when any of these Januses fire on any of these sprinters, they're going to be firing directly into danger close territory, right up against those T1 medium tanks. You can see the sprinters actually do decent damage against these tanks. I would definitely say they're a fair counter to the T1 medium tanks. Part of the reason is that they move so fast that the T1 medium tanks actually struggle really badly trying to hit them. The other reason is that they are they do fairly decent damage, but they can also get that surround to essentially double it and hand it to the next person. With most of those medium tanks out of the way, this shouldn't be too hard to clean up here. A couple of bulls moving forward, but again, bulls aren't really that big of a threat if you can surround them with units. So making more sprinters is always wonderful. Works out usually pretty well. Handed out some T2 here. Somebody was asking for T2 in the chat, and I was trying to accommodate them, but it did cut my sprinter production, which actually almost killed me here. See the bulls pushing forward, and they are very hyper-fixated on trying to kill this metal extractor, which meant that the sprinters could jump in and jump on top of these bulls here. And see, when they surround a bull, it actually does really, really powerful damage. Janus is also struggling to hit these sprinters just because of how fast they are. They can't really lock on targets so quickly. And the light laser turret will be eager to blast down the rest of these Janus, and that push is held. So that was completely skewed against me, and you can see just how powerful having a mobile army is. You can surround the entire enemy, and that is going to be a complete wipe for the forces of T and B. Now, really nicely done by Magnum Tutor, who has moved in, taking advantage of the lack of resources, the lack of units here from T and B, and has moved in with their own T2 units to dismantle this front line. Very nicely done. Very good map awareness to do that when you see the enemy make a very committed push. And immediately what starts up in my mind is a whole bunch of Lazaruses. I want to res all these bulls, all the Januses, all these T1 medium tanks. I want to res them all and send them right back in T and B's face. Meanwhile, Red Eagle pushing forward here, doing quite a lot of damage. We do have our own T2 factory out now for Z-Pod. So eventually we're going to be able to start sort of contesting this, but for the meantime, there is essentially uncontested push here from Red Eagle. Where's Red Eagle from? That sounds like a call out or something, maybe like a clan tag. Wonder where Red Eagle comes from. You can see just how thinly T&B is stretched now because of how late the units from Majo are to hit the field, as well as just the overall pressure that Magnum Tutor has put on here. There's not really a way for Nilero, no, not really a way for Nilero to expand. Oh, actually, no, we are on T2 here. A lot of metal storages here, but yeah, we're on T2, so we definitely need to see that T2 economy upgrade. Getting those first metal extractors upgraded is going to be really, really important here. Making sure that we can pump out enough units or pump out those expensive T2 units. Sheldon's doing decent work here. The Sheldons are very good against these lightning tanks. I've made up my mind that they are good against them. Despite the lightning tanks being so quick, the Sheldon can just shell away from so far that I think they're definitely worth it here. The Bulls, however, is a much more difficult task. Those Bulls are so dangerous. The Mauser as well. Mausers and Bulls is a really expensive but versatile composition. You can do a whole lot of damage. The only thing I'd add into that is a radar and radar jammer. We can see these forces from Red Eagle very, very far forward here. Humblegar has done a phenomenal job of setting up a front line, though, and we are pumping out some of those T2 units now. We've got Bull, I was going to say Bulls, but yeah, Bull, singular, hitting the front line. There is a brother to follow it up afterwards, and it looks like we are going for those T2 metal extractors eventually. Going for that fusion reactor, also very important. And you can see more Sprinter on tank action. You can see just how quickly they can really dismantle these tanks. The thing is, again, look, these tanks can't even hit the Sprinters. They're firing away as much as they can, but they just can't kill them fast enough. And yeah, the sprinters actually end up making for a really good option against those T1 medium tanks. I was really surprised. I didn't expect them to be so good at bursting these tanks down, but they actually can do it pretty well. They're also tall enough to basically fire over the tanks, so if there's a weaker one in the middle, they're going to target that one down, as you can see with this here, before working on the ones at the edges or wherever they need to be working on the map. Juicy clump of artillery, which is exactly what I'm thinking about right now. Ooh, I think I'd like some of those shell shockers, so I start moving the sprinters in to go kill them over here. Getting some damage on them, also making them rain down artillery on themselves. Always fun. Always good fun. And sending in the res bots here to eat up whatever was left on the floor. Important to get these res bots out, because you can see the CNOC is essentially paying me. You can think of it like the enemy is paying you for these engagements when you eat up their units. You get the metal from your side of the map as well as the metal from their side of the map. I should definitely have some metal extractors on these points here. Okay, it looks like this guy was the one in charge of that. We are building those metal extractors eventually. It's just taking a little bit of time here. I need to scale the economy, and that is where this comes in here. You can see the wind power is absolutely abysmal, but we do have these massive wind farms up and running on the southern side of the map, and they are coming up really quickly. You can see about 50%, and it was 5 seconds left, which means about 10 seconds total on any one of these. Starting up energy converters. Too many energy converters at the moment. We're draining power like crazy, which is cutting into unit production. You can see now those resurrected Januses being really, really dangerous. TNB 8713 coming in range of the Januses. They do a lot of damage to a commander. Oh, one more shot and I would have killed it. So close and yet so far. Anyways, sprinters do make it into the back line here to take down the T1. Some grunts trying to take down a sprinter. The sprinters, I mean, man, they just trade so effectively here, so efficiently. Keeping your enemy constantly in their back line is a great way of making sure that their front line is essentially untouched. Oh, this isn't good. Big APM stall here on my part. You can see that the res bots are, yeah, they are mowed down real quick. My teammate Quiet Listener here does have the hounds out, so that's quite nice. We are going to at least be doing some long-range damage there. Magnum Tutor is finally being faced by a bunch of T1 units, but those Sheldon, they can just back off, and they do indeed. Love this little fortified base, by the way. We've got agitators here. We've got some heavy plasma. Very, very nice to look at. At this point, Z-Pod has actually held very nicely. 4 Zars here to keep the bottom of the map safe. Z-Pod probably was aware that their lane was essentially the hold it as long as you can lane. And to be fair, they're doing a great job at that. They're making sure to hold on as tightly as possible. We've got the Zars, we've got Bulwarks coming up as well to burst down some of those really tanky units. And yeah, this is looking really, really nice down here. This is a dangerous push. We've got the Sumos marching forward, but we really need some sort of artillery behind this. The Sumos themselves are, I mean, they're good, but they're not going to win this fight on their own. So I'd definitely love to see some Sheldon or some Hounds or some, I don't know, just some sort of anything. Oh, long-range plasma cannon was built here, all the way in the base of Francis. That's a rare unit to see on the flats and forests, but it's actually a pretty good idea. It is, well, flat, so you can just shoot for miles and miles with the long-range plasma cannon. So yeah, I actually quite like that a lot. Now we can see more res bots pumped out, feeding metal back into the war machine. I was making 1 tick and 1 Lazarus, and then out of the lab, just raw sprinter. Now, if we look at how much metal is tied up out here, you can see that it's thousands and thousands. 10,000 metal up there. We've got a couple thousand metal all said and done around here. And this was really a turning point. Enoch was moving the commander towards all of these units right here, and I saw the golden opportunity. He's not happy right now. Commander does go up, and that was essentially the entire production facility wiped out here. You can see that we do have a T1 lab back here for CDOC, but that forward facility was really what was holding this entire front line together. It also just happened to kill a whole bunch of those tanks that were just standing around, or that the commander was standing around anyways, and that was very, very costly to lose. Meanwhile, down south, the Tsar battle. You can see these Tsars are really, really scuffed up here. 2%, 45%, 69%. Very, very nice. That is a hot pink Tsar if I've ever seen one. Hot pink Tsar with 69% remaining. Boy, the jokes practically write themselves, don't they? We can see the sprinters are coagulating again, and I'm getting ready for a huge move out. That's kind of my thought process here. Also starting up some static defense with the T2 constructor here. Very very ambitious, I guess you could say. Planning some big things here. We've got tons and tons of anti-air all around the base. Whether that will finish in time, well, you know, spoiler warning, no, nowhere close. Meanwhile, more and more sprinters coming out here. I think I changed... Oh yeah, I see the air units coming out at this point. There was gunships at some point that were harassing and wanted to get those down and out of the air. Oh, as well as this scout here was being really annoying. So decided it was time to start up the air lab, but not before starting up some more build power here. You can see that I've got tons and tons of metal in the bank that I really should have been spending. I do have this economy center over here. You can see that I've started up 2 advanced fusion reactors. And I do remember while I was playing this game consciously just thinking to myself, yeah, maybe I'll just be okay with leaking energy to the entire team. And it seems like that was a good idea. It seems like I am not seeing a whole lot of advanced fusion reactors out. I do see a lot of fusions though. Z-Pod is definitely benefiting from the overflow of energy because we're on one fusion reactor and looks like about 22 or so advanced solar panels. It's good energy production. But with this advanced fusion reactor overflowing, 2 of them overflowing actually, you're going to be in a really nice spot. Everyone should be in a nice spot. We succeed together, comrades. Starlights are out. Those are really good if I was going for welders or tanks or anything like that, but unfortunately it is not the ideal counter to a bunch of sprinters. They will fire all at 1 or 2 of the sprinters and kill them, and then the remaining 500 will continue to march forward directly into your production facilities, which is never a fun thing. Wow. Those long-range plasma cannon can really shoot deep into those plasma shields. Impressive to see. You're gonna fire. You wanna catch it firing all the way over here, and you can see that plasma shield glancing the projectile out and about here. It is time for the first wave, the first impact, as if you will. Yeah, we're sending across a whole bunch of ticks here to try and get a little bit of reconnaissance. Couldn't be bothered to make a bunch of air scouts, so we're just gonna go for a fighter wall instead. This is what I usually try to do. My like pattern of thinking is, okay, manage the front, move my units, and then jump back, edit my base, jump back, edit my economy, and then repeat that pattern until either I have won or lost the game. It's kind of this like circle, right? So you have like these 3 parts to this circle, and then at any one point, there's this like secret area in the middle, kind of like a donut. And this is emergencies. And when emergencies happen, you just take an immediate detour. You do not pass go, you do not collect 200. And you rush right into the middle, and then from emergencies, you can just come back out to wherever else you are. Kind of my trifecta right there. Oh, these bulls caught me with my APM sagging right there. Yeah, that was rough. Those sprinters taking an absolutely abysmal trade at that point. Not sure what my commander is up to as well. I don't even know what I was looking at. Oh, this is what I was looking at. I was looking at all these sprinters here, trying to get them to run into the bases down south here, trying my absolute very hardest to do a little bit of damage down south and at least alleviate some of the pressure to this player down here. Trying to be a good teammate, and in the end, I'm ending up killing myself. need to work on that a bit, maybe. Commander, ooh, in a lot of trouble. I don't think I even noticed it was going down there. Starlights do burst it down real quick, and that will be the end of my glorious commander, at the very least. At least the bulls get cleaned up, and that does mean that I now have a whole front of these sprinters ready to go, just in time to intercept a massive wall of fiends that are running towards my base. Sprinters don't counter fiends, but they're a good option for it. They're They're kind of like incisors versus blitzes. They're not really the same thing, but you can use them in sort of similar ways. Anyways, also my teammate doing a phenomenal job of helping me clean this up as well. Appreciate them looking out for me. Quiet listener, making sure the content is strong. But yeah, contributing a whole lot, getting tons and tons of these hounds out on the battlefield, actually overflowing a lot of metal here. Could even go for a second T2 lab. That always feels extremely greedy, building a second T2 lab, but sometimes it can be really, really powerful. We've got Air Lab out, we've got the fighter wall built, we've got the T2 production up and running. We are looking really, really solid at this point. This is a massive army pumped out here by TNB 87113, but we've got our own just as well. Little to no damage was done over here. Most of this was intercepted by the forces. If you think about it, it makes sense, right? I was trying to cut sort of along this path right here, which means that I had to fight through 1, 2, 3, and 4 players in order to get to this base. So as far as you know, efficiency goes, that was really bad. It was not an ideal efficiency, but I think it was worth it in order to at the very least try and get a look into the back of the map there. At this point, I do switch up production, realizing that I'm probably going to need something a little better. I switch into welders, I switch into hounds, and I start queuing those up towards the front line. If you can afford to spew out units quick, then it's probably best to go for welders and set up a nice defensive line. Welders are supremely tanky. 2,700 health, although that's a slightly damaged one. 2,950 health, and very, very powerful for it. They are not the perfect unit, but no unit is, I suppose. See this bull actually getting really far back here. Luckily, I did notice it. Redirect a couple of these welders. Say, excuse me, no thank you. Whoa, I completely missed a huge push over here. This was really nicely done. Magnum Tutor has actually broken into the back line, completely shut down production from TMB 113. I should definitely be pushing forward here now that that line has been broken. Snipers, oh, that hurts. Yeah, whenever those snipers fire, at least 4 of those or 5 of those Sheldon are going to disappear. That does hurt. Oh, can we get the energy converters? Excuse me. We're going to go after the fusion reactor. We're not going to get the energy converters. Oh, unless... Oh, we are going to get the energy converters. So that's quite nice. That shuts down the metal production for the dark green player here, who's now reduced to just the economy. They're pulling onto the ground. No energy converter economy, which is actually what I'm starting up here. You can see I'm starting up more and more of these advanced fusion reactors, and I literally cannot spend my metal quick enough. So I'm just panicking here, trying to spend it on whatever the most expensive thing is possible. You'll notice I've built a couple of these Webbers, a lot of these Webbers actually, and I'll show you that cue I'm giving them. So you can see I zoom all the way out, right-click and drag to spread them out across the map, and then I give them a fight command, which is the F key, and then right-click and drag to send them across the map. And what that's going to do is it's going to send them all in these lines, right? And whenever they're walking through these lines, they're going to find units, and they're going to eat them up off the ground. Which means that we're going to have tons and tons of metal reclaim coming into this base off of the entire front line. All of this stuff up here is eventually going to get cleaned up. It's sort of like a map wipe. you're just sending the spiders in to wipe the entire map, and eventually you're going to be in a real nice spot. Wow, this Weber got extra brave. He will not be long for this world. Dies to a single Scorpion battery. I have to say, I think my favorite part about this game, aside from the fact that I still have T1 solar panels this late into the game, is the amount of, or just how quickly that T2 lab was actually able to come up. I was really, really surprised with how effective that was. It just didn't feel like I was drained on economy at all. It didn't feel like there was any sort of, didn't really feel like there was like this huge taxation on the resources that I could spend on other projects. So like the T1 bot lab, I could still produce units. And yeah, I think that's probably something to look into in the future for me, at least personally. But you know, I'd probably advise you guys to investigate it as well. Because yeah, you're actually in a really good spot when that happens. Meanwhile, resurrecting on the front lines. Didn't have anything better to do, so figuring I might as well. Ooh, tactical nuke here. Getting quite a few hits. Does take out a big chunk of this front line here from Magnum Tutor. But at this point, my units are marching in. This many snipers is difficult to deal with, though. The Hounds were also having a bad time fighting these ticks off. I should have gone for a Juno. I think that probably would have been the right move here. Seanock doing a good job of keeping unit production high, high enough to stall these Hounds while allowing the snipers more time to finish off whatever units start running through. Should have also sent the ticks in once I realized there were those snipers there. Got my commander back up and running, so that's always nice. Welder Hound is by far one of the most powerful compositions in the game. You have the Welder can deal with basically any of these spams here. Can deal with all of these pawn spams, tick spam, whatever you want to throw at it. And then the Hounds, of course, can do that really high DPS from a long range. Commander does go down, but the snipers do hold against basically everything else, and it's about time to pull out of there. I know when I'm beat. Mammoths used to break the front lines here, break the siege, and they will succeed. Marching forward at this point and devastating basically everything that's here. Tactical nuke is used. Where are we sending this one? Directly into the productions here, into the anti-air turrets from Magnum Tudor. Those are pretty inexpensive though, so not a terrible loss. You can see more and more of these spiders are sent out. So every time there's a new wave, what I do is I just hover these, hit Control-Z to select them all, and then I just shift right-click and drag so that the queue gets added to all of the units that are already on their way. And then it just gets put at the front of the queue for all the units that are stationary. And then from there you can just do the same thing, fight command and right-click and drag over here, and it's gonna work out pretty phenomenally for you. You can see a lot of these spiders do end up leaking through the back lines here, and they can start eating up a lot of the economy that's laying all over the ground. It can be a really, really powerful way to turn the tides here. I degunned a couple Tiger tanks, I do remember that. Those Tiger tanks were actually pretty scary because I didn't have a huge unit base at the moment, and there was about 10 of them. Now it's time to end this. There's three parts to this. There are the scouts that I've sent out right here. Which luckily didn't find anything, no fighter wall or anything like that. There's the fighter wall that is moving forward in 2 different layers, which is just how the fighter wall was set up anyways. And then there's the bombers. And so I find 2 targets here. I find the advanced fusion reactor of this base. So selecting a few of those and turning them onto that advanced fusion reactor, and then selecting the rest of these bombers and turning them onto this fusion reactor. Ooh, missed it in one. Those Stormbringers, man, they suck. They absolutely suck against these fusion reactors. And you can see the bombing. It's all it takes to finish off this job. Both of the green players are now wiped out. Time to bomb the purple player. We had a very, very slight view of the advanced fusion reactor back here, although I targeted absolutely poorly. Should have probably gone after the completed one rather than the incomplete one. Oh, I did manage to retarget that. Okay. Very, very good. And that is essentially the northern part of the map wiped out. So at this point, it does become a north versus south here. You can see a lot of these units are actually clustered on each other, having a really hard time maneuvering around. Tons and tons of Shiva from Red Eagle Player 1, and I think if they had distributed those Shiva a little better, if they just, you know, moved them kind of in a big circle, big concave here and pushed forward, they actually would have been in a way better position. Regardless, those Shiva are getting some absolutely devilish hits here on a lot of these mammoths, taking them down really, really badly. Burning away their health super quick. But I gotta give it to Z-Pod for keeping up production here. Oh, we are pumping out a Titan. That's very, very nice to see. We are up to an advanced fusion reactor, although we don't have enough power to fund a whole bunch of these advanced energy converters. What we do have is more and more Resbots and Reclaim Spiders headed out and doing their sacred duties. Yeah, I'm really not kidding. I think that's definitely an underlooked utilization. Yeah, an often overlooked or an underutilized part of those res spiders is just how much they can actually reclaim off of the areas that you destroy. If you can blow up an entire enemy base, you're probably going to be in the lead anyways. But if you can blow up an entire enemy base and eat up the metal that remains, you're going to be in an even better spot. And that's kind of what those spiders are used for. At least what I use them for. They also can paralyze these units, so if there's if there's anybody that's standing in their way, they'll make sure to shut them up. They paralyze for a while too. It was a good 10 seconds right there. This was a bombing run I wanted to double check on because I I use these bombers. Oh yeah, check out this. Carpet bomb. Oh, that was really satisfying. I knew that was satisfying in the game, but then, you know, I was wondering if it was actually as good of a hit as I thought it was. Yeah, it turns out it was pretty beautiful. Anyways, parking a lot of these bombers up north. Bombing is almost always going to win you the end of the game. It is one of the most common ways to end one of these games. And if you're not taking advantage of it, you're definitely missing out. Again, eating all this metal off the front line. You can see there's 1.5 thousand metal here that's just going right into my pocket just because of the because of these reclaim spiders here, eating up these czars, eating up anything off the front line. Trying to blow up this frontline facility. That was terrible bombing on my part, but I had absolutely no vision of this area, and it was very confusing. Same with this one. All I could see back here were the advanced solar panels, so that's what I went for, when obviously I should have gone for the fusion reactor, the advanced fusion reactor. I think I do eventually change targets, yeah, but definitely not enough bombers to finish that off. The second wave of bombers might do it, though. Our final tally, up to 14 advanced fusion reactors, tons and tons of energy converters. I don't know how many in total. But that is indeed going to be the end of the blue team. Whew, what a stressful match. I was really worried about it, but it was some phenomenal teamwork coming out here. Magnum Tutor did an excellent job of keeping pressure super high in the middle of this map. Absolutely no chance for the player they were up against to out-tech them. Meanwhile, up north, got to give it to Quiet Listener for holding on and supporting tremendously, I might say, with those hounds, contributing a ton of damage in order to keep both me safe, but also the entire line. Red did a great job of pushing, and down south, Zapod did an excellent job of holding this line. Had to take on an entire extra player all by themselves, and for what it's worth, they did a phenomenal job. Really nicely done. Yep, I'm pretty proud of that. You know, working on that backline eco is really often difficult to manage while you're managing a front line. But I think all of this, again, goes back to that T2 lab that I was able to get out so quickly. And you know, once that T2 lab is out, you start growing absolutely exponentially, and it just shows just how much quicker you can grow if you actually do get that T2 out and about really quick. I think maybe I should have handed over T2 bots to all my teammates a little bit sooner. Sorry. But aside from that, yeah, that was just a really fun match. Thanks a ton for everyone who played, and thanks a ton to you right there looking at this on your phone or your computer or wherever you might be watching this, for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one.